there's a few points that I want to make about biological agriculture or organic agriculture or sustainable agriculture. There's really no good term to describe this. There's a lot of words that don't mean much. Like, I don't know if anybody here can even explain to me what is sustainable in our society. And our agricultural system is definitely not. Even the large-scale organic agricultural systems aren't sustainable. But I want to talk about something that is sustainable, and that's the soil. The soil as an ecosystem that generates food, that regenerates people's souls and spirits and their bodies. And some people call that biodynamic agriculture. The Europeans, the French, call it biologique, which is my favorite term to describe this. But what it essentially is nurturing a farm system so it evolves ecologically as an ecosystem, and then it reaches a place where the food that it produces is dynamic, and that means that it's more than the sum of the parts, and if you were a scientist, you really couldn't figure out exactly why it was magical. But when it gets inside you and interacts with your biochemistry, it makes you feel good, it makes you more intelligent, it makes you less susceptible to propaganda or nonsense. It makes you, well, you don't sit around and want to drink Budweiser and eat fat burgers, you know, it makes you feel like you want to get out and do something useful and be productive. There was a Renaissance man in the 20s named Rudolf Steiner. He came up with these, what we like to call compost magic potions, essentially, and they were special forms of compost that re-inoculated the system with the necessary microorganisms in the soil to create a dynamic system or a healthy system. So you don't need chemicals to deter pests, you don't need fungicides to deter microorganisms. Everything is so vibrant that it becomes an ecosystem, essentially. We made a huge breakthrough in our own path towards the future in that we started fermenting not our waste materials, but some of our most pristine fruits and vegetables that we noticed weren't decomposing, they weren't rotting, they weren't blowing up. They had huge shelf lives, and they would shrink and start to dehydrate rather than like a tomato gets a little fungal spot and the whole tomato blows up and oozes all over the place. That wasn't happening. And we were wondering why that was. What we've discovered is if we take these, this was actually 300 pounds of beautiful Santa Rosa plums that I couldn't get the price I wanted for them. So rather than sell them cheap or give them away, I decided to feed it back to the farm. And that was part of the serendipity that happens when you have organisms like this to interact with. They actually give you sort of the intelligence to make the right decision. So now when we put this out, we notice that there's even more vitality. And we've noticed that over the last 5 or 6 years. So we don't have insect problems, and we don't have disease problems. We have characteristics, and that's why we've come up with this way of describing our farm as the essence of a place that you can actually taste, not unlike wine, where you can taste the region. If you're really aware of this, you can taste the region that the wine was produced. You can even taste the farmer's interaction with his vines. You can taste the soil at different regions of Europe especially, where they don't necessarily manipulate their wines like we do. Well, you can also have that same experience with fruits and vegetables. We're now convinced that we need to start sharing that with other farmers and other regions, because everyone could have their own terroir or essence of a place.